The wind carried dust like whispers of ghosts through the empty streets of Buckthorn, a town the maps had long forgotten. Its wooden signs creaked on rusted nails, its saloon doors swung open to no one. But today, they swung for her. Clara May stumbled through the doorway, a bundle pressed tight to her chest. Her face was sunburned, lips cracked, and her boots barely held together. Behind her, the silence stretched like a noose. Her arms trembled, not from fear, she was past that, but from sheer exhaustion. Inside, 4 men played poker at a warped table. Their laughter died as they turned to stare. She didn't look up. All she saw was the bar. All she needed was warmth, food, anything. She swayed. A bottle tipped off the counter, shattering on the floor. That's when one of them stood, slow and cautious, hand on his holster. "I ain't here for trouble," she whispered, voice raw as sandpaper. "Just feed my baby." Her arms loosened just enough to reveal the face of a child, red and sickly, barely conscious. "I can warm your bed," she said softly, eyes empty. "Just feed my baby." The silence was deafening. Behind her, near the far wall, a shadow stirred. Leaning against the post like a man part of the wood, he stepped forward. He wore a battered hat pulled low and a coat that had seen more winters than kindness. His boots thudded gently as he approached. Elias Boone said nothing. He pulled off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. It swallowed her, and for a second her knees buckled from the weight of fabric, of mercy, of everything. The man who had stood by the poker table narrowed his eyes. "Ain't your problem, Boone?" Elias didn't respond. He looked down at the baby, then into Clara's hollow gaze. "There's stew in the back," he said finally, voice gravel and regret. "I'll get it." She didn't cry. Her tears were long gone, but she held the coat tight like it could hold her together. As Elias walked past the other men, one spat to the side. "Ain't like you to play nursemaid." Elias paused, turned his head just enough. "Ain't like you to keep your mouth." The tension cracked like a whip, then broke. The other men went back to their cards. Elias disappeared behind a curtain. Clara sank into a chair. The coat smelled of leather, smoke, and something else, something forgotten. She looked down at her baby. His tiny chest still moved. She was still alive. And in this town of dust and ghosts, that meant something. Before Clara takes her next step into the unknown, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heart-wrenching stories like this one. The stew was hot, salty, and thick with potatoes, more flavor than Clara had tasted in weeks. Her hands shook as she spooned it into her baby's mouth, bit by trembling bit. He coughed, then swallowed. That sound, so small, so human, tore something loose in her chest. Elias Boone leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching silently. His face was hard, tanned by sun and sin, jaw shadowed by a week's regret. His revolver hung heavy at his side, and his eyes, grey as storm clouds, revealed nothing. Clara didn't thank him. She didn't have the strength. "Name's Elias," he said finally. She kept feeding her son. The silence between them was thick, uncomfortable, but not cruel. "Clara," she muttered without looking up. "Clara May." The baby whimpered. Elias pushed a tin cup of water toward her. She took it, sipped, then gave it to the child. "You alone?" he asked. She nodded. "Long?" "Too long." He took a seat across from her, boots thudding against the warped floorboards. He didn't ask more, and she didn't offer. Not yet. Then she looked at him, really looked, the lines in his face, the scar under his left eye. The weariness of someone who'd run just as far as she had. "You got family?" she asked. He hesitated. "Used to." Clara nodded. "Me too." He noticed how thin she was beneath his coat, how her hands looked like they'd been scraping dirt. Yet she held that child like it was carved from gold. "You don't gotta sell yourself," he said softly. Clara's gaze sharpened. "I wasn't offering kindness," she said. "Just trade. That's all I got left." Elias leaned forward, voice low. "I ain't taking it. Not from someone with eyes like yours." She blinked. "What kind of eyes I got?" "Ones that still remember who they were." That silenced her. She looked down, cradled the baby closer. "I've done things," she said finally. "So have I." Their eyes met. For a second they weren't outlaw and mother, sinner and saint. They were just tired souls in a dying world. A gust of wind blew through the open saloon door. Elias stood, walked over, and shut it. "Storm's coming," he murmured. "You and the kid can't stay here." "Then where?" Clara asked, voice taut. "There's a place," he replied, "not far." She didn't move. "Why?" she asked. "Why help me?" Elias looked away, jaw tight. "Maybe I'm tired of walking past people already buried." Clara stared at him. She didn't trust him, but something inside her, some stubborn ember, believed him. She stood, swaying slightly, baby pressed tight. "Then lead the way." Elias picked up his hat and opened the door. "Stay close." And without a word more, they stepped into the wind together. The ride was silent. Dawn was just a smear on the horizon when Elias led Clara and the baby down a crooked path through the pines. Her body ached with every jolt of the horse, but she kept her grip tight. The baby lay swaddled in his coat, sleeping soundly against her chest. An hour passed before the shack appeared, hidden in the bend of a dry creek. It had once been a preacher's retreat, Elias said. No one came here now. The cross above the door was split, one arm dangling like a broken wing. Inside, the air smelled of rot and dust, but it was dry. Clara laid the baby on a pile of old blankets. Elias went to light a fire. "You used to come here?" she asked. Elias nodded without turning. "Long time ago. Preacher took in runaways, drunks. He fed the hungry, never asked what brought 'em." She watched as he stacked wood, his hands surprisingly careful. When the flames caught, warmth spread through the cabin like a slow breath. "I buried my husband 3 towns back," Clara said suddenly. Elias didn't respond. "They said he stole horses. He didn't. He just owed money. I begged the sheriff. Told him about the baby. He hung him anyway." Her voice cracked. Elias stared at the fire. "Sheriff with a gray beard and gold tooth?" She blinked. "Yeah." He said nothing more, just poked at the fire until sparks danced up the chimney. She looked around. The shack was falling apart, holes in the roof, broken chairs, but it had a certain stillness, a kind of forgotten peace. "I used to believe," Clara murmured, "in God. In good men. In justice." She touched the broken cross above the hearth. "I don't know what I believe anymore." Elias stood, grabbed a hammer and nail from an old crate, and climbed onto the table. He pressed the wooden arm back into place and drove the nail home. The cross stood straight again, cracked but whole. Clara stared at him. "Why'd you fix it?" Elias shrugged. "Felt wrong leaving it that way." They sat in silence. The baby stirred. Clara picked him up, rocked him gently. "You got blood on your hands, Elias?" she asked. "More than I care to count. And still you help us?" He met her gaze, and for once there was no distance in his eyes. Maybe that's why. Outside, the wind whistled through the trees like voices long gone. But inside, beside the fire, the air held something rare. Mercy. Not spoken, not promised, just present. And for a night at least, Clara and her child were safe. Morning brought no peace. Clara stepped outside the shack, baby cradled close, and found Elias tightening the saddle straps on his horse. He didn't look up as she approached. "Where are we going?" she asked. "South, across the border. There's a ranch near Las Cruces. Old friend might help." She hesitated. "And if he doesn't?" "Then we keep moving." Clara looked toward the hills. The baby's breath was shallow, cheeks too pale. She adjusted the blanket around him, heart squeezing with every wheeze. "We can't go yet," she said. Elias straightened. "You saw what happened in Buckthorn." "I won't wait for Boots to find us." "He's burning up," Clara said, voice rising. "He won't make a ride like that." Elias scanned the tree line, jaw tense. The wind carried no sound, but he didn't trust silence anymore. "I'll fetch water from the spring. Cool his fever. You've got until sundown." She nodded, swallowing her fear. Inside, she crushed dried willow bark she'd found in a drawer, mixing it with water to soothe the child. His skin was hot as coals. She pressed a damp cloth to his forehead, whispering lullabies with cracked lips. Hours passed. The fever didn't break. When Elias returned, his hands were scraped and bleeding from clearing the trail. He set the water down without a word. "Still bad," Clara said. Elias crouched beside the child. He touched the boy's cheek, then his forehead, expression unreadable. "We can't stay," he said softly. "I can hear 'em. Not far." Clara stood, fire flashing in her eyes. "Then go." Elias blinked. "What?" "Take your trail. Take your guns. Leave us here." His voice dropped. "You think I'd leave you?" She stepped closer. "If you take him out there, he'll die." Elias looked at the child again. A long breath left his chest. "I've buried too many," he said. "I ain't adding a baby to the list." Silence stretched between them. Then Clara whispered, "Then we wait. One night. Just one." He gave a slow nod. That night, Clara kept vigil by the fire. The baby moaned in his sleep, but the fever began to ease. Elias sat by the door, rifle across his knees, eyes never still. At dawn he saw movement in the valley below, fleeting shapes, riders on the horizon. He closed the door gently. "Tomorrow," he said. "We ride tomorrow, no matter what." Clara didn't argue. They both knew time was bleeding out. But so was fear. In its place, something else had taken root, something harder to kill. The fire crackled low. Shadows danced across the walls of the shack, and outside coyotes cried beneath a sky scattered with stars. Inside the air was warm, but Clara shivered. She sat cross-legged, cradling her baby against her chest. His fever had broken. His tiny breaths came slower now, steadier, though he remained weak. Clara touched his cheek, still warm, but no longer burning. Kalitus was nearby, whittling a piece of wood with his knife. His hands were calloused but precise. Not for the first time, Clara noticed how quiet he was. Not silent, just careful. Like every word cost him something. She watched him a long while before speaking. "You ever hold a baby before?" He looked up. The knife paused. "Once," he said. "My sister's, years back." Clara nodded. "She still around?" Elias didn't answer right away. "No," he said. "Lost her in a fire. Town got torched by a gang. I was supposed to meet her that day." Clara lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry." Elias returned to his carving. "I should have been there." Silence stretched between them, but not an empty one. More like the quiet shared between two people holding different kinds of grief. After a time, Clara lay the baby down and moved beside Elias. Her fingers touched the edge of his coat, still wrapped around her like armor. "You don't talk much," she said. "Don't see the use. You listen, though." He gave a small nod. "I ain't had that in a long while." He handed her the wood he'd been carving. It was rough, uneven, but clearly meant to be a little hoarse. "For him," Elias said. Clara smiled, the faintest crack of warmth in her tired face. She turned the toy over in her palm, then looked at him again. "You know I was scared of you," she said. "You should have been." "I'm not anymore." Elias leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. "That baby's got more fight than most men I've known." Clara chuckled softly. "He gets it from me." She glanced down at her hands, scratched, dirtied, scarred by months of running. "I don't feel like a mother half the time." "You are," Elias said. "I seen women with less fight give up long ago. You didn't." Clara swallowed hard. "Sometimes I wish I could." "You won't. Not with him in your arms." The wind outside picked up. Elias stood and checked the door, placing his rifle near the entrance again. Clara watched him, how he moved, how his shoulders seemed less burdened tonight. "Elias." He turned. "If we make it, if we get through this." He waited. "I don't want to be alone anymore." He didn't smile, but something softened in his face. "You're not," he said. And for the first time in weeks, Clara closed her eyes and let herself believe it. The sound reached Elias first, a faint echo across the ridge, a rhythm too sharp to be wind. He rose from the stool, rifle in hand, and moved to the doorway. He listened again. Hoofbeats. 4, maybe 5 riders, coming steady. Clara stepped beside him, baby in her arms. "They found us," she whispered. "Not yet," Elias murmured, "but they're close." He crossed the room, pulled a rolled-up map from his saddlebag, and spread it across the table. His finger traced the southern ridge. "If we leave now, we can cut through Deer Gulch, hit the river before dusk." Clara looked down at her child. He slept peacefully, cheeks less pale, breath even. "He's not strong enough for a hard ride." "I know." Elias's jaw tensed. The line between running and staying was razor-thin now. He'd spent years escaping, always one step ahead of a noose. But this was different. Clara watched him. "You ever been caught?" "Once. I shot my way out." "Will you do it again?" He met her eyes. "If I have to." Then he looked away, voice lower. "But not with him here." He began setting traps. Wire along the brush line, glass shards near the windows, a scatter of nails at the entrance. Clara followed his movements, noticing how methodical he was. Not panicked, just prepared. "Who's after you?" she asked. "Posse rides out of Caldwell. One of 'em, Rayburn, been chasing me for years. We used to ride together." Her eyebrows lifted. "What changed?" Elias paused, then said, "He wanted blood. I wanted out." Clara tightened her grip on the baby. "You think they'll kill us?" Elias looked her straight in the eye. "Not if I'm standing." The day dragged slow. Every creak of wood, every gust of wind made Clara's heart jump. She sharpened a kitchen knife. She didn't know how to shoot, but she'd kill with her hands if she had to. As the sun began to dip, Elias returned from scouting the ridge. "They're less than a mile," he said. 5 riders. Rayburn's with 'em." He checked the rifle's chamber, then handed Clara a pouch of bullets. "Stay inside. If anything happens to me, take the back path. Don't stop, don't look back." She stared at the pouch, then back at him. "I'm not leaving you." "You may have to." "No," she said. "I stayed through fever, hunger, death. I ain't running now." Elias looked at her, something fierce and quiet in his eyes. Then he nodded. Outside, the last light bled from the sky. Inside, they waited. Every breath, every second, heavier than the last. And in the silence before the storm, 2 souls stood together, not as fugitives, but as something stronger. The first shot rang out just past midnight. It shattered the window near the hearth, sending splinters flying. Clara dropped to the floor, shielding her baby. Elias was already moving, firing back through the open door before ducking behind the table. "4 of 'em!" he shouted. "Circling wide!" Clara crawled to the back corner, heart pounding, baby wailing in her arms. The sound of hooves thundered around the shack, punctuated by gunfire and shouts. "Boone, come out now and die like a man." Rayburn's voice, gravelly, smug, too close. Elias fired 2 more shots and moved toward Clara. "They're trying to draw me out," he said. "They won't stop until one of us is dead." Clara held the baby tighter. "Then don't go." He touched her arm, gaze steady. "I ain't leaving you." A crash from the back. One of them was trying the rear door. Elias pivoted, aimed and fired. A grunt, then a thud. "One down." The front door flew open. Elias barely turned in time to shoot again, catching a man in the shoulder. Another shot cracked. Elias jerked back, a red bloom spreading across his side. Clara screamed. He dropped to one knee, teeth clenched, blood soaking through his shirt. He pushed himself upright, staggering toward the door. "I'm fine," he growled, but Clara saw the truth in his face. He wasn't. Rayburn stepped through the door, gun raised, smile twisted. "Always knew you'd die bloody, Boone." Elias tried to raise his rifle, but it slipped from his fingers. Clara moved before she even thought, grabbed the kitchen knife from the table and lunged. She drove it into Rayburn's side. He howled, spinning. She wrestled the baby against her chest with one arm, yanked the knife free with the other. Rayburn turned his gun on her. Elias pulled his revolver from the floor and fired. The shot hit Rayburn between the eyes. He fell without a sound. Silence followed. Real silence, the kind that only comes after death. Elias leaned against the wall, breathing ragged. Clara knelt beside him, pressing her hands to his wound. "You're bleeding bad." He smiled weakly. "Ain't my first time." "I stabbed a man," she whispered. "You saved me." The baby wailed again, alive, unhurt. Clara rocked him, hands slick with blood. 2 bodies lay outside. 1 fled. The posse was broken. They had survived. Barely, but they had. Elias closed his eyes. Clara watched his chest rise and fall, slower each time. "You stay with me," she said. "You don't get to die now." His fingers brushed hers. "Not planning on it." Outside, the dust settled. Inside, the fire still burned. They rode at dawn. Elias slumped in the saddle, his shirt stained dark with blood. Clara guided the horse, one arm holding the reins, the other wrapped around her baby. The desert stretched out ahead, cracked and endless, the air dry as bone. Every few miles, Elias stirred, muttered something half-formed. Clara spoke softly, urging him to stay awake. She knew enough about wounds to recognize danger. Too much blood, too much silence in his eyes. By noon they reached a canyon and stopped under what little shade there was. Clara eased him to the ground, cupped water to his lips. He drank, barely. "You're burning," she said. Elias gave a faint smile. "Ain't the sun?" She pressed a cloth to his side, hand trembling. "You need a doctor." "No time." They sat there a long while, heat pressing down like judgment. The baby slept, curled beside them, his fingers clutching a thread from Elias's coat. Eventually, Clara broke the silence. "You said you used to ride with Rayburn." Elias opened one eye. "I did." Her voice hardened. "Were you there when they hung my husband?" He didn't answer right away. The wind rustled through the rocks like it too was waiting. "I was nearby," he said finally. "Didn't know your name then? Didn't know he had a wife or a baby?" Clara looked away. "I didn't pull the rope," Elias added, "but I didn't stop it neither." She closed her eyes, jaw clenched. "Why tell me now?" "'Cause you deserve to know who you're trusting, and if I can't forgive you, I wouldn't blame you." For a long time, neither spoke. The baby stirred, whimpered, then settled. Clara stroked his head. "You stayed," she said. "I did. You could have run." "I could have." She stared at the horizon. The heat shimmered. "Then maybe that's enough." Elias looked at her, eyes glassy from pain. "What does that mean?" "It means we've all got ghosts," she met his gaze. "But some men choose not to make more of them." He let out a shaky breath. "You forgiven me?" "No," she said. "Not yet." His lips twitched. "Fair." As the sun dipped lower, Clara helped him back onto the horse. She tied his wanted poster to a rock, lit a match, and watched it burn. He raised an eyebrow. "That your idea of justice?" "No," she said. "It's my idea of letting go." They rode slow, each step forward a small defiance. Toward something new. Toward something earned. Las Cruces shimmered in the afternoon heat, a patchwork of adobe walls, low roofs, and dusty streets. The border wasn't far now. Just a few more miles, a few more hours. Clara led the horse slowly through town. Elias slumped behind her, barely conscious. She kept her head low, scarf wrapped around her face. The baby slept against her chest, skin warm but calm. She spotted a cantina near the edge of the plaza and guided the horse toward the back alley. Inside it was dim and cool, the air heavy with the smell of sweat and tequila. She found a quiet corner and eased Elias down onto a bench. A bartender eyed them, but said nothing. Clara ordered water and bread. The baby drank from a rag dipped in cool water, small lips moving eagerly. Elias stirred, mumbling something. She brushed his hair from his face. Then the door creaked open. A man stepped in, tall, lean, with a long coat and a colt on his hip. His eyes swept the room and stopped on Elias. He walked straight over. "You're Boone." Clara tensed. The man rested his hand on the table, his voice calm. "Name's Finch. I don't work for the law." "I work for coin." Elias didn't answer. Clara stood slowly. He's not who he was. Finch raised an eyebrow. Still got a price on his head. Clara swallowed. How much? 800. Dead or alive. She reached into her satchel and pulled out the last thing of value she owned. Her wedding ring. Gold, worn, simple. She held it out. Take it, then walk away. Finch looked at the ring, then at her. That won't cover half. It's all I've got. He stared at her a long time. Then, to her surprise, he took the ring, pocketed it, and stepped back. Lucky man, he said. And then he left. Clara sat down slowly, heart pounding. Elias opened his eyes. What happened? She smiled, tears in her voice. Bought you a second chance. He chuckled weakly. Didn't think I was worth that much. She touched his face. You were wrong. Later that night they reached a broken fence line just south of town. A crumbling ranch house stood in the dark, half swallowed by weeds. This it? She asked. Elias nodded. Used to be my uncle's. Place has been dead a while. She looked at the old boards, the leaning barn. It's not much. He smiled faintly. It's ours. They stepped through the gate together. No one chased them. No one watched. For the first time in too long there was only quiet, and ahead a chance to build something new from what was left. Spring came late to the borderlands, but when it did, it came quietly. Green shoots pushing through cracked soil, birds nesting in the rafters of the old barn. The air grew softer. The wind less cruel. Elias stood outside the ranch house, hammer in hand, driving nails into a cradle he'd been building for days. His side still ached, but the wound had healed enough. Each tap of the hammer echoed with purpose, with peace. Inside, Clara stirred a pot of beans over a small stove they'd managed to fix. The baby sat on a blanket nearby, gnawing on the wooden horse Elias had carved. His laughter rang out, high and full of life. Clara smiled. She stepped to the doorway, wiped her hands on her apron, and leaned against the frame. Watching Elias work, she saw not an outlaw, not a man with a bounty, but something else entirely. A partner, a father, a man trying. Cradle's crooked, she said, teasing. Elias glanced up, grinning. You think he'll care? She stepped down beside him. Probably not. They stood in silence, watching the horizon. For the first time it didn't feel like a threat. He's strong, Elias said, nodding toward the baby. Takes after you. She touched his arm. Takes after us. The sky above was clear. No vultures, no riders, just sun and wind and time. That night, Elias rocked the baby to sleep in the new cradle. Clara watched from bed, hand over her mouth, breath tight in her chest. It was the first night she hadn't checked the door twice, the first night she didn't sleep in boots. When he laid the baby down, Elias turned to her. I ain't never been good at promises, he said. You don't have to promise, she replied. You just have to stay. He crossed the room, sat beside her, and took her hand. I can warm your bed, she whispered. Just hold our son. His hand closed gently around hers. I already do, he said. Outside, coyotes sang in the distance, but they didn't come close. Inside, a fire burned low. A family, made not by blood, but by choice, by pain endured, by love earned, had taken root in the dust. And they weren't running anymore. They were home. If this journey touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable stories like Clara and Elias's. And if you're ready for your next tale of grit, heart, and redemption, click the video on your screen now. The next story awaits.